Thanks everybody for being here. Photogrammetry and Gaussian splats is they're big words, and a hell of a way to start a morning or an evening for our European friends online here. But the great thing about this technology is where it can take you. And creatively, I've had a great career, but I'll tell you, this phase that I'm in with photogrammetry has just been one of the most remarkable periods I've had. And I just think it offers tremendous capabilities for all manner of creative endeavors. And so anyway, what I'll show you is a few case studies from some of the projects that I've employed it with. And then I'll tell you about a little bit about resources that I can offer you to help develop these skills yourself. And as Kachun is saying, it has become much more approachable now. We've been involved with it. Greg Downing, my business partner for my first company, we did quite a bit with this, and Greg was an early author of Image Modeler and some early packages. And we've kind of been very closely following the development of it over really probably a decade or two now. And but it's really reached a great point. And of course, there's another big pivot that's coming with it in this use of AI technology and Gaussian splats that I'll also mention. So let me go ahead and share screen. We'll get started here. It's not a whole lot of time. So let's see. I think I think we're good. And let me know if anything doesn't look correct, but I think this should be fine. So this is a talk that I give a lot in different contexts as a title, but again, one thing that I'm a big believer in, I was a CG artist for years and years doing fictional worlds, and it was fantastic. But I had a big pivot where I kind of decided to look at the real world and use CG to do that. But with the advent of photogrammetry, it was a fantastic method to describe and communicate, the wonders of the world. So that's been one kind of guiding thing for me. I don't need to go over this. Julietta kind of covered it, but these are some of the classes. I'm also an educator in the USC Film School. And these are some of the areas. The reason I show this is kind of the area of specialty. Unlike Ken, I do not do character animation. I stay away from character animation with a long pole, as I say, because it's just not my domain. I'm an environments artist. I have a background in architecture, so that's kind of what I practice. As I always say, I try to create the worlds the characters live in, generally. But this is just a little bit of student work. I lead field trips out into the Mojave Desert near Los Angeles, and we use all these capture techniques that, again, photogrammetry and the like, to create these kind of fictional worlds, modification or extensions of nature, and it's quite a lot of fun. Let me move on here, and there we go. And then just a few slides from film projects that I was able to contribute to. Again, environmentally, kind of ran the team to do the cityscape work on Day After and so forth. Castaway was a pivotal film for me. It's a huge effects film. Most people don't know this because actually it is largely CG and it's natural environments. And this is the thing that kind of made me consider how my passion for the outdoors could be the basis of my career. So that began a first company that I made with Greg Downing to kind of try to pioneer some of this capture technique. And we started off with gigapixel imaging, which is just a very high resolution display. And this was, we practiced this quite a bit. We found great opportunity to utilize this resolution for the full dome community and world. That kind of led over into a application of this to VR. So, and this was an early full dome film that got a little bit of play here and there. And this was kind of a production test for how we could take our environmental capture techniques and apply them to narrative or just artistic pieces in the dome. And then we went through a phase where we applied a lot of these techniques to different projects that other people were directing. And this is from one of Tom Lucas's films, I think, for ENS years ago, science visualization. This kind of worked its way over into the VR spectrum. We were connected with Jaunt, which was a camera company that had a lot of momentum several years ago in VR, and convinced them to send us around the world to create films on magnificent locations like Machu Picchu. But again, the one thing I'm going to start talking about is the application of this to full dome. Now, this was a VR production, but again, I would love to take, say, the central scene into the dome, which would be pretty straightforward to do. And this is talking about the celestial alignment of Machu Picchu and how it could not exist in any other way. And there's all these kind of resonant things of the sacred Apu or peak of Salcantay that lines up with the Southern Cross. It lines up with the Urubamba River, which mirrors the celestial plane. So, but these are all things that, again, immersive media can kind of best present, whether it's VR or full dome. Now, getting over to photogrammetry. This is actually, I'm not going to give you an academic lecture about it, but it's really kind of a fairly simplistic idea in that as you take two camera positions, and Ken showed this wonderfully with his Muybridge example, that there's common features in several images. And if your shooting methodology or if your shooting style has a methodology, you can walk about a subject. You can, walk in interior, exterior spaces, object capture. There's lots of different methods. But from this myriad of images that you'll get, computer vision algorithms will help you identify what these common features are, shoot rays out from the camera, and where they intersect, that becomes what's called the tie point, or kind of a common reference. And as you generate, processing-wise, a tremendous amount of these, that can end up becoming a 3D mesh or vertexes of a polygonal mesh. And then the software takes the images and it aggregates them on an importance level. So what commonly faces or what is most perpendicular to the camera that shot it will be kind of favored, and the ones that are way off to the side. So for this area, this camera would be favored. This would contribute some pixels, but be of lesser importance. So what you can get is, and this is the beauty of photogrammetry, you get fairly accurate scanning or recreation of surfaces, but you get a tremendous amount of textural detail, what we call texel detail. And that is what really makes it a persuasive thing. Anyway, let me keep going because I don't want to slow down here. This is one of our first very early photogrammetry pieces we applied to full dome. And again, this is for the Morrison. Ken knows all about this show. This is the earthquake show, I think, several years ago. And to be honest, I'm a little foggy as to what app we used for this, but this was a pretty elaborate shoot that we did in the Ferry Building in San Francisco, and then got what we thought, which I think still generally holds up, was a pretty decent result that was applicable for the resolution inherent in full dome. So this showed us a great opportunity to use this as a production tool in full dome. Now, this is just a survey of different techniques that we use. And this is kind of going from the macro to the celestial, if you will. And this was a device that we helped develop with a friend of ours called the Giga Macro. And this is using a CNC gantry with a camera with a 65 millimeter kind of macroscopic or really microscopic lens. And the idea here was that we could create, using depth maps and reconstruction, we could create models of very, very small things with photogrammetry. And then, in a sense, and then moving up from there, gigapixel is, of course, a great backbone for raster imagery. And then we would go, and this is where photogrammetry kind of lives mostly, is train-based. So again, here's Greg with a carbon pole with a camera. We're shooting the Mono Lake Tufa. This was actually a project for Autodesk where they asked us to compare the efficacy or kind of the accuracy of photogrammetry against laser scanning. And we found that it was, nearly identical between the two. So the accuracy of photogrammetry as a scanning method has become very, very great. Of course, we'll shoot spherical panoramas in the background there to go along with, and so forth. But in any case, a lot of this can just be terrestrial, on your feet type of capture. Carbon pole is a great way to, and this is a pretty tall pole. This is made for photogram. This will extend up to about 16, 18 feet. And I think, let me move one thing over. Okay. So this is can be useful for locations that drones are not allowed. And of course, we'll move up from there to drone capture, which is very common now for GIS or terrains. But very frequently, we'll charter either a fixed wing or a helicopter, ideally, in different locations. And I do this quite frequently. And we'll remove the doors from say, a Robertson helicopter, and then be able to do pretty significant captures of large-scale terrains. And I've turned this into gliding experience, kind of a hang gliding simulation of my product. But in any case, and then if you go up to the largest extent, you can use GIS data that sources either from the shuttle or from satellite data, and there's some pretty rich opportunities as far as capturing the Earth at a larger scale. So we're trying to cover it from the very minute to the very large. Okay, let me keep going. And let's see what's up next. This is a case study. This is one of, I think, our most pleasurable and successful photogrammetry captures. This was done for a cultural heritage site in China on the Silk Road. And there's a foundation that Mimi Gates, Bill Gates' stepmother, runs in Seattle called the Dunhuang Foundation. And they offered to have us come out and capture several of these caves. And these are priceless antiquities. This is really a major cultural heritage site for the world. Few Americans know about it. We certainly didn't know about it as we were approached on this. But what a wonderful location to visit if you are up for traveling to the Gobi Desert. But this is a pretty faithful reconstruction of one of the most ancient caves there, and you can see a Tibetan influence. And these is kind of an interesting mix of influences on the Silk Road, which is the nature of the Silk Road, this intercultural highway, as it were. But the idea behind this was to take this into virtual reality, which we've done. But this is just showing you some examples. And here, if we look at this, it feels very photographic. But in fact, it's 3D modeling throughout. We were talking, I think Ken was mentioning, or was it Kachun was mentioning how you can go places in VR. And the funny thing about this piece is you can stand in VR on this ledge and get a very unique view of the reclining Buddha here. And it's something that would not only be frowned upon, but you would probably end up in some type of prison, I imagine, if you did this there. So this is kind of one of the really interesting things that you can do in our VR experience, is experience these caves in a very unique way. Let me keep going. So this led to another big pivot for me about, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. And I really wanted to bring this to the public and be able to share these locations. What you're seeing here are snapshots of locations that have all been scanned. These are all 3D renderings of these different locations. And so these are just a few examples. This shows kind of a rough geometry, but then coupled with that texel detail, the texture detail I talked about, you can just get incredible photorealism. And these are just different sites that I've been excited to visit. Obviously, Carlsbad, as Kachun had mentioned. And then different color. I'm a big rock art I love to study rock art in its different incarnations. This is one outside of Bishop, California, which faces the sky, called Sky Rock. And again, some of these are very fragile sites. Some are culturally sensitive. And again, to be able to show these in context in a VR headset or in full dome is a really wonderful thing. This is a very, very esoteric location that generally is off limits, but we work with the Navajo Nation and they allow access. And we tell the story of this particular canyon in Arizona. And this has been an ongoing project, which has, again, been just a joy to shoot. And then I'm currently involved with a Buddhist group in the Bay Area, and we're in the process of scanning a number of temples in Southeast Asia. So I'm heading over to India and Cambodia soon to continue this work. This is the first one we captured in Bodh Gaya, India. And this is to provide a virtual pilgrimage to the virtual, or to the, I'm sorry, to the Buddhist community. But I would love to take this into full dome too, and have intention to. But this is the product that I have released. It's out on the Meta Quest. And I just took this year, ported it over to the Apple Vision Pro, which is just a stunning thing. If any of you in the audience, I'll offer it to you. If you have access to this headset, please email me. I can send you some download codes for these, and it's just a stunning thing. Or if you have a Quest, I'm happy to give you a code for that too. And you can take a look at this. I'm just gonna only have 2 minutes left, so I'm just gonna scrub through these 3 examples of what you can experience in the headset. These are pre-rendered in Maya. This is a cave title. This is some of the temples that have been captured. These are all photogrammetric models. This is how it feels in the headset. This is some hang gliding. And in the AVP, you can just use your hands and fingers to fly, which is a really exhilarating thing. And just to feel the spatial aspect of these sites is really something spectacular. This is an ancient bristlecone you can actually climb, which you would never do in real life. These are some of the native sites that are just remarkable to experience. So I think I'm just about out of time. So what I'm going to lastly do is just mention this. This is a art project. One thing I've noticed about photogrammetry, nobody's used it artistically. This is a film I'm just finishing up. I'm going to be entering in Dome festivals around the world. This is influenced by Jerry Ullsman, who is one of the early pioneers of composited photography, and but applying this to photogrammetry. And what I'm doing here is I'm rendering out at 16K square to be able to take it out to Apple, to conventional full dome, to vertical full dome like Cosm, and then also to giant screen. And this is a specialty immersive format called the Cinechamber in San Francisco that I'll be debuting it in. Lastly, very quickly, email me and I can give you the link, or you can search Autodesk University with my last name, and you can get a class that I put together a few years ago on how to do this. And I'm just going to tap through this rapid fire. And there's also a talk that goes with this on how to perform photogrammetry. So I can give you a lot of tips and clues from this. And one last thing, I'm just coming up, is this is the future of all this. And this is a new method using AI, derived neural learning. This is called NERF, N-E-R-F, neural radiance field, not the toy. And there's also a thing called Gaussian splatting. I don't have the time to go into this, but we could talk about this in Q&A. But as Ken pointed out, these are great little phone apps, so you can easily get started with photogrammetry. I use a package called Reality Capture, which is kind of the most, I think, accurate package to use. And Epic Games bought it and offers it for free, so you don't have to spend the $3,000 on the license I did a few years ago. So anyway, that's it. There's my email, and please feel free to reach out. I can ask any or answer any questions.